What's up, guys? I'm Caleb.
I'm Nick.
And welcome to Tool Time Tuesday. Alright, so in this video, Nick and myself are going to be addressing the center frame of the Jeep. It's in really rough shape and we have a new skid plate to put on there. So we're going to be taking you guys through that project.
Well, this is from Taboo Customs. It is the center section of the Jeep YJ. They also make a TJ version as well. And this one's actually a little bit cheaper than some of the other ones out there because it's not fully welded, which for us is great. It's exactly what we need. It comes with two different frame rails and all the nuts you have to weld on yourself. And there's some instructions depending on passenger or driver side, which decides where you're going to put these nuts. So we're going to put a bolt and nut through it, tighten it down, tack them in place, and then weld them fully. And then once we get it lined up, we're then going to weld the other side onto it, make a nice boxed frame. Well, this is the center section of the Jeep, usually the most rusty part. And when we bought this, it actually just had regular sheet metal self-tapping screws holding this transfer case and skid plate up. On the YJs and TJs, the transfer case is actually what holds your skid plate, your transfer case, and transmission all in. So it's pretty important. As a little added measure, we welded some extra pieces of metal on here just as a temporary support. So we're actually going to cut all this out and line everything up with the back piece first. We're actually going to attach the skid plate to this to get the alignment just right. And then once it's all lined up, this is going to slide up over there.
Can you lower your left hand if you can hold it? There we go, just to show. Perfect, you're good.
Yeah. Yep. Weld that up in there. And then there's even a little added gusset plate here.
Ooh.
That's going to slide up in there. Add a little extra support.
I like
your
that.
Body mounts.
Thank you, Taboo Customs. Protecting your assets off-road. I like that.
Yeah.
Alright guys, got you on the super view so I can show you what we're doing. So the skid plate here is holding up the transfer case and the transmission. And we're just going to cut this whole thing off because it's so rusted. The bolts are so rusted. See the self-tappers the previous owner did. So we're just going to cut this mess out. And I just want to get a little before look at it. The game plan is we got the jack here. We're going to cut this out freely. And then we're going to slowly lower it down once it's completely cut out. And the transmission will sit on this jack stand here, and hopefully that'll work. But yeah, so let's get to cutting. All right, old skid plate is off and taken care of. There's lots of rust, lots of sticks, and I mean, this thing is just a goner. So luckily we have a replacement. I mean, look at that bolt. That's pretty nice, huh, Nick?
I know. Brought a whole piece of the frame with it.
I know. Here, why don't you take them under and give a little walk through what we got going on.
All right. So we're actually able to get these transfer case bolts out. We have this one and then one over here, and one of the other ones was sheared off, it looks like. Have everything supported with the jack underneath the transmission, and amazingly we actually got 3 of these skid plate bolts out.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
Which is amazing. Normally they just spin in the frame if they don't just shear right off. So that was pretty cool. And then we just used the angle grinder, get the rest of it off, and now we're ready. Many times they recommend that you take your exhaust out if you can, spot. That is a real pain, and it doesn't normally go back on when you want it to. But do we want to, Caleb?
I don't know.
It can be kind of hard to weld up there with the exhaust in place.
I agree.
You know, this thing, if we try and unbolt this will probably just break.
That'll never go back on.
And up top, probably will break too.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we don't have the rest of the exhaust back there, so.
Nope.
You know, that'll come off. So then on this side, we have all of our lines. We actually have to cut the e-brake bracket off, which has seen better days. And then of course we have our brake lines and fuel lines and all that stuff.
Those actually look really good, like they've been replaced at some point.
Yeah, everything has been replaced. Brake lines, fuel lines, pretty good. So these will just pop out and we'll get them up and out of the way and wrap them up so they don't get hot when we're welding. And that's that.
Cool.
Well, this is an amazing Jeep because we have not sheared off a bolt yet, which is pretty fantastic. We decided to take the exhaust out just to get a little bit more clearance in here. So the way we did it, we are taking the skid plate transfer case thing mounting plate off, since the exhaust is attached to that and somebody already welded it. So we're just gonna take this whole thing off. And then there's 2 bolts up by the headers. And then this has a bit of a custom exhaust in the back that was just on with one rubber hanger that we took off. And it can come right out.
Woo! And down she goes.
And there is a plug for your O2 sensor, which conveniently came out. And there you go. Look at that.
The whole thing. Not a single bolt broke or even gave us a little bit of trouble.
Yep. So this is a fantastic Jeep. We did use PP Blaster on almost every single bolt about 2 weeks ago.
But none of these.
I've done it again, but yeah, not those. Now they are going into aluminum, so it helps. But PP Blaster is a great thing.
Yes, it is.
All right, so this kit does not come welded with the nuts that go on the inside of the frame.
Yep.
So that's what we have to do. They're actually nicely labeled P and D for passenger and driver.
Very nice.
So we're gonna do the driver side, and then this one, I'm gonna do the passenger side.
Nice.
Comes with the weld nuts, which are actually pretty nice because they
do
give
they
you a
just
little bit of
seat right in there?
Yeah, and they give you a little spacer so that it like actually sits really nicely in there.
Yep.
Now you don't want it to warp when you're heating it up, so you do want the nut in there, not only to hold it flush when you're welding, but to prevent the threads from warping at all. And if you do have the actual Jeep skid plate bolts, it comes with this conical washer that helps actually center it so that it's not sliding around in here. So I'm going to use this with the nuts, keep it tight, and then weld passenger, driver. We'll be ready to go.
Awesome, dude. And if we look over here, I just was able to cut out this side's rusty bottom of the frame, which is really bad, but pretty happy with the cuts, nice and straight. And now I'm gonna go and do the other side. Nick is over here prepping these surfaces. He's got the nuts all welded on.
Yeah, so now that we have the nuts welded in, we're actually going to attach those frame rails to the skid plate.
This is the new skid plate.
That's
well, new used.
newish skid plate. We're gonna make sure that it bolts up, lines up good, and then we're essentially gonna reassemble everything. Put it all back in the Jeep, make sure that this is able to attach to the mounting plate, and the mounting plate attaches the transfer case, and make sure that everything lines up before we weld anything. At that point, when it's all back together, we'll tack it up, and then disassemble it again.
Exactly. And essentially why this is so important that we have to put everything back together is because a lot of these holes for the bolts and the nuts and everything don't have much like room to play. So you really need to nail it. So take your time if you're doing this job to put this together properly. And just this point of the game, just really take your time. Make sure that before you start tack welding things, they're all in the correct spot, and that's essentially what we're trying to do here. And of course, prep everything so that we can avoid further rusting or prevent it for as long as possible, because Jeep stuff.
Yep.
This is all cleaned up. The edges are all cleaned up. We're going to prime them and also clean out the inside as much as we can. Same thing over here on this side. And we are going to go ahead and do the reassembly and start tacking this these frame patch kits right into place. So let's get into that. This is fitting up really good. We just need to get a C-clamp on this side just to make this come up just a little bit. Dude, I'm hyped on this.
Yeah, fits really good. Now, we were fortunate in that we had a bottom frame rail left.
Yes.
I saw on some videos where the whole bottom was gone. You now need to figure out where this needs to go.
Oh yeah, you're getting some stuff out of there. Oh yeah. All right, guys, so the inside of the Taboo Custom is done, and Nick did a great job welding that. We're back the next day here. I'm gonna be attempting to weld. I'm not a welder, but we're gonna take this opportunity to learn, and I'm gonna do this outside, so I'm gonna prep it really quick, and then we're gonna get right into welding. Actually, Nick, you can show them what piece we're doing again here.
Yep, here's the plate.
Perfect.
Need to weld through primer on the back. Make sure everything's all cleaned up. This is gonna be, we're gonna kind of butt weld these, and we're gonna make sure there's a little gap, probably like 1/8 of an inch, and we're gonna weld in there. And yeah.
The lengths don't really match up,
perfect.
but that's okay.
It's gonna be okay. And since we have a 220 volt welder, we are just gonna freaking go for it. They do say in the instructions, if you don't have a 220 and you're using a 110, it's not strong enough, that you should actually tack this up and then take the whole thing back down. So we would have
much more involved.
Welded that backside already. You just tack the whole thing, take it down, and then you could weld the inside and the outside. But since we have a 220 volt welder, we're just gonna do the outside.
Perfect. So this should go and show you that anybody can do this job as long as you're willing to do it and you get some equipment. I've never really welded before, and this is probably going to look ugly, but it should stick. So we're going to see how this goes. Go easy in the comments, and we'll get to welding this right now. right guys, so here are my very first welds. Don't look in there, but not too bad for a first time. I mean, like, I'm all right with it. Nick is gonna go through, clean up anything that he thinks is like really bad. Nick came and cleaned up the welds, so thank you for that. They look amazing, buddy.
No problem.
And then we're gonna go ahead and lift the pan up here, get that in place, make sure it's painted, and move on to the next project. Frame rails are done and we are ready to put the plate back in. We also have the exhaust to go up as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing set up. Had to switch over to the main camera for the finishing touches, but the skid plate is back on. The center has been welded and painted and rust prepped, so I think we're good to go, dude.
Yep.
Give it a final look. All right, so that concludes the video of how to replace the center section with the Taboo custom. We're laughing because we did a lot of projects today. You'll see them in other videos, but we got the plate on. It looks amazing. We can drive it around safely and securely, and just knowing that the transmission won't fall out on us, which is was a huge concern. But like the video, comment, subscribe, and we will see you on the next Tool Time Tuesday.